and going to Rushanara, please.
Good afternoon, and thank you. I'm going to focus my questions on the online safety bill and consumer investment fraud. But as you were responding to the chair's questions, I was thinking about the call I got earlier today, a telephone call saying your national insurance number's been compromised, and you must call back this number and press a button and give all your, it's to the effect of giving more personal data over. And in the past, the NCA has been invoked in calls like that. And I certainly know constituents who've rung up being very anxious. And sometimes people end up, easily being led into giving information. So the point is well made about anyone being susceptible or and certainly targeted. And what we see now is more and more social media platforms pushing adverts. So to Mr. Stewart, first of all, the online safety bill is obviously a really important opportunity to address some of these challenges. The former head of the FCA, now Governor of the Bank of England, has mentioned this at times. Not least the LCF case when he came and gave evidence, he referred to it. The current FCA head has referred to this as an opportunity. So do you think that the online safety bill should require search engines and social media platforms to implement a level of due diligence on the advertisers who use their platforms to prevent scammers promoting frauds? Because that's not included in the draft bill.
Firstly, I think we're very pleased to see the inclusion of fraud in the bill, and that's a very big step forward because it wasn't in the original draft of the bill. We are concerned about the breadth and scope of what's currently in the bill because there is a view, and it's a bit unclear from the wording of the bill, but it does look as though some content that is actually at the heart of the problem that we're trying to address would not be covered by the way the bill is currently framed. So we're very interested to see how that will pan out through the bill's scrutiny process.
Yes, that it should be.
Yes, of course. Of course, it should be clearly included, because otherwise there is no mechanism for social media to be legally obligated to do some very basic things that don't happen now, such as ensuring that the person who is placing the ad is someone they know where the person is, they know where the address and contact details are correct, or where the person is advertising a financial investment, that firm is properly authorised by the FCA to do so. Now, at the moment, those checks aren't being made, and there is no legal obligation either. So, anything that would I'm sorry.
Sorry, I've got quite a few questions. So, can I just ask, have you had any feedback from officials and ministers on taking this point on board and updating and making the necessary changes to this very important
I think we're very conscious that there is that there'll be a bill scrutiny committee process in relation to this particular bill, and I think
I'm aware of the scrutiny process. I just want to know if the FCA is getting the appropriate receptiveness to this particular provision so that we can get it into the provision rather than having to rely on, backbench MPs having to put amendments in to try and persuade the government to make the necessary changes that you think would be helpful. Is that happening?
I think we've made our position very clear through a number of fora, and I've made speeches about this as well in the last few weeks that have been published, saying this is something that we would like to see.
But to ministers and officials, have you had the dialogue to give you confidence that they will take on board what
it's not? I don't think we've done that yet, but we're very happy to do that. And I think our public position is obviously very clear.
Okay. The FCA is paying Google $600,000 a year to post scam warnings. Is it appropriate for a regulator to have to post warnings while Google profits from social media companies that make money out of fraud or shouldn't you be empowered to make them do that without you having to waste money?
Well, we'd prefer these ads weren't published in the first place, to be really frank. But yes, I mean the irony of us having to pay social media to publish warnings about advertising that they're receiving money from is not lost on us.
And are there any other companies that you're paying, as you are Google, to do this, to take to
no, I mean we obviously run a very expensive for us Scam Smart campaign, several Scam Smart campaigns, which is our way of educating consumers about the sorts of scams we're seeing, the sorts of things that consumers can do to avoid being scammed in the first place, and what to do if you get the text message or the phone call saying that you're under investigation by the NCA, or someone's got your national insurance number, whatever it might be. We tell people what to do. We run social media, television, radio, and newspaper advertising. We pay for all of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it does sort of make a mockery of the regulator, that the regulator has to pay companies who continue to profit from fraud. And isn't it obvious that the government should stop putting the regulator in a position where, frankly, Google and the like are laughing their way to making double amounts of profits, first from fraudulent sites being hosted, and secondly, extracting money from you as a regulator to be able to take them off and give warnings? Well,
I mean, I think, as I said at the outset, we prefer these ads weren't being published in the first place. We have been in discussions with Google, and Google have offered us a credit in relation to these expenses in the future, which we're in the process of considering at the moment.
So they'll give the 600,000 a year back. So you don't actually, have they confirmed that they will give you that money back?
I'm not sure they've gone that far, no.
They ought to. I mean, they are basically profiting out of fraud, and they're costing the Financial Conduct Authority money. It would be really interested to know what happens with that discussion, whether you're going to get your money back and whether they can give you an undertaking that this is going to happen going forward. Just on the numbers, obviously we've already heard about the amount between July and October 2020, the total number of reported instances of investment scams quadrupling from 300 to 1,175, and the average cost of fraud in the value of £46,000. Chris Hemsley, what action is being taken to prevent investment fraud via the payment systems and the cloning of websites of reputable investment firms? I mean, that's another one that's very easy for any one of us to get entrapped into doing. Never mind more vulnerable or less sort of savvy customers.
So I think the where the PSR fits into this is particularly in closing off some of the vulnerabilities around impersonation for the initial payment. So that is this name checking service, confirmation of payee, because one of the tactics that's part of these frauds is that they encourage you to make a transfer to a fraudster when the name you are typing into your internet banking platform is a legitimate business. So confirmation of payee particularly focuses on that. The wider issues of regulating, supervising investment fraud are principally for Mark, as he's just been talking through. But we are playing our role in making sure that where we can, we're making it harder for criminals to conduct these frauds as well.
Well, did you want to add anything to that particular question about cloning of sites?
So one of the biggest increases in the online scams has been the use of clones of FCA authorised firms. We see this as a direct response from scammers of some of the warnings that we've put out and the advice we've given to consumers to rely upon the FCA register as a safe place. So to get around that advice, scammers have started to use the FCA register and clone the names of those firms. We've conducted a substantial Scam Smart campaign earlier this year and amended our advice on a Scam Smart website to help consumers avoid falling for a clone and ensuring that they were dealing with a legitimate FCA authorised firm. But what this shows, I think, is that the work that we're doing, including our work around consumer protection, Scam Smart and the warnings list, is the genuine front line against scammers. And that whatever we do, they're trying to respond to, and it's an evolving picture all the time. So I think I mentioned earlier, we want the banks and payment services firms to continue evolving their own approaches, as we need to as well, because some of the best entrepreneurs out there are scammers, and they are using different tactics all the time to get around the advice that we're giving consumers. So, I mean, this is a gripping story, and it's really important that that we're able to put money into things like Scam Smart, because it's an incredibly important public service.
Yeah, no, I get that, but there is a responsibility of online companies to be responsible for the platform. Those who are on the platform who are carrying out fraudulent activities and knowing their customers, as you would expect from banks, for instance, and other providers. So, and as Graham Bigger said from the National Economic Crime Centre on this committee, they should know who they are dealing with. They should remove fraudulent sites. They should report to law enforcement on the fraudulent sites. Isn't it time that on online platforms like Facebook and some of the social media, Twitter started? I've noticed that there's more adverts coming in platforms like Twitter, as well as, of course, search engines like Google, that there needs to be a seismic shift in terms of social media companies having responsibility for companies that are clearly engaged in fraud, that they are the first line of frontier, because otherwise, one, it's costing taxpayers because you're paying for it, or other agencies. And ultimately, it's hard you're essentially putting plasters on the wound, if you like, if we're not having the online companies taking the action, knowing their clients, if you like, who are using their platforms to carry out fraudulent activity.
I think we agree completely, and we're engaging with all the social media companies, making it very clear that we expect them, even now, without the online harms bill being enacted or perhaps applying as broadly as we've just discussed, we want to make it clear that we expect them now to be taking action to reduce the number of scams that we find on their sites.
And just briefly to add, I mean, I completely agree with Mark, and I completely support that effort. We want all parties to play their role, and that includes these social media firms, other communications firms that are introducing vulnerabilities and cost into the system that then is ultimately born within the financial services sector and customers. So I completely support what Mark just said.
Thank you. Thank you very much.